We're here today with Ilan Goldenberg, the director of our Middle East Security Program, and he has just co-authored, along with a number of luminaries, a report on security for an Israeli-Palestinian two-state solution. Ilan, can you tell us a little bit about why this report and what it speaks to is so important right now?
Well, look, right now, obviously, it's a very difficult situation between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Nobody thinks an agreement is right around the corner. But one of the central issues, an issue that didn't used to be as significant but has become more significant, is the question of security. Israelis will never agree to any kind of a two-state solution that does not absolutely meet their security requirements. Palestinians will never agree to a solution that feels like a type of permanent occupation from their perspective. And so the question is, how can you find ways to meet both sides' needs? It's especially critical right now because, for one, a lot of these steps take a long time, and by showing what the end state could be, you also derive things that should be happening on the ground today. Two, it also is critical to the Israeli public, who, especially in the aftermath of the withdrawal from Gaza and ISIS,
which did not go well.
Right. The withdrawal from Gaza and the view that we left Gaza and then everything imploded. Of course, they left Gaza unilaterally. This is a very different type of prescription. You're talking about a 10 to 15-year redeployment type plan, very carefully monitored, jointly done, all kinds of other steps. But trying to convince the Israeli public that security is possible in the context of the two-state solution. And finally, me as somebody who is a former negotiator and worked on some of these negotiations, I know that outside work done by others to look into great detail at some of the different solutions is very helpful when negotiations inevitably at some point do come back again.
And outside works can sometimes be dismissed as the work of do-gooders, shall we say. Can you tell me a little bit about you and your co-authors to kind of assuage that fear?
Sure. We have put together, I think, what is an incredible team. We have two people, an Israeli and an American, or we have two Americans who one who's focused on security, one focused on the politics, and two Israelis, one focused on security, one focused on the politics. On the Israeli side, we have reservist Major General Gadi Shamni, who used to be the commander of the West Bank. In other words, he was in charge of the entire West Bank. He was in charge of all these challenges. We also have Nimrod Novik, who has been a negotiator for years, working in Track 1s and Track 2s, and worked in the 90s on these questions. And then we also have Colonel Chris Bauman, who was part of General Allen's security team during the 2013-14 negotiations, and was his chief of staff and worked very deeply on these challenges. And I also worked on that effort in 2013 and 2014 for Secretary Kerry.
Terrific. So what's the how? How do we actually secure security?
There's so many details in this report, and I do believe it's the most comprehensive thing that's been put out there.
All 80 pages of it.
So you have to read all the details, but at the most important level, I think there's two or three key concepts. The first is you build a multi-layered security system for Israelis and Palestinians, starting with better relations for Israel with the Arab world, which creates that first layer, a stronger relationship with Jordan and Egypt, beyond who they already have good relations with, but would be much stronger in the event of a two-state solution, is the second layer. A third layer, which is a dramatically increased effort on the borders, the border between Jordan and a future Palestinian state, or between Egypt and Gaza, that will make it much more secure than it is now, a much more effective internal security system for dealing with terrorism threats that you build out over time. And finally, and this is very important for Israelis, Israelis still retain the ability to act unilaterally in extreme situations if they must. Just as the U.S. has acted unilaterally in Pakistan to take out people that they thought were a problem, just as Israel acts in places like Syria, Lebanon, and elsewhere when it feels a challenge. So there is that ability, but it must come as the last resort by creating all these layers, but it still gives Israel ultimately the ability to defend itself by itself. The other, sort of a couple of other key principles. One is the withdrawal would be a conditions-based redeployment over time. So if certain conditions agreed to by Israelis and Palestinians are met in great detail on security questions, there will be a phased redeployment based on that concept. This is critical for Israelis because it makes sure they don't leave and then have a vacuum in its place, but it's also critical for Palestinians who with this, the redeployment has target timetables associated with it, and they want to know this isn't going to take forever. Finally, it also includes initial steps taken by Israelis very quickly to dramatically reduce visibility and intrusion into Palestinian daily life. And so this is what Palestinians need. They need to feel like the occupation is ending or it's over, and it only happens if they get that payoff up front very quickly, and then there's a longer-term process to ensure Israeli security and Palestinian security on some of the most sensitive and difficult questions.
Terrific. Well, thanks so much, Ilan, for coming to speak with us. The report comes out on Tuesday, May 31st, and we're all really looking forward to it.
Thank you.